Hey guys, Mary from Mary's Vegan Table. Welcome back. Thanks for joining me. Today we're going to be making yucca pasteles. This is a yucca. It's a vegetable. And being that I already made a video on how to make the filling for this, I'll leave that link in the description box when we're done with this video here. And let's get started. Let's get making this, guys. I'm excited to make this with you. So as you can see, these are two large yuccas. These two will get you a dozen. These will get you 12 pasteles because they're pretty large. So first things first, we have to peel it. It's easier to use a good potato peeler than to have to take the skin off with a knife. This also saves you a lot of the yucca from being cut off with the skin if you use a knife. Just make sure you get down past the red. You see that, what, the wax and everything? Make sure you get all the red areas off too. You see the red color there? So make sure you get that red color off. Now, believe it or not, this is the easy part, believe it or not. And I mean, it's fairly simple. It's a lot less steps to make than when you make the regular pasteles. The only thing is that this pasteles, this yucca, once we're done grinding it up, we have to squeeze out all the water that's in it. And if you have carpal tunnel syndrome or ulnar syndrome like I do, unfortunately I have both. It's not easy on your hands or your wrist or your forearm, your whole arm basically, from the elbow down. So I rarely make these. This is the first season in a long time that I decided to make them again. So, okay. We have this all peeled. Okay, make sure we get everything off. I'm gonna start peeling the other one, and then I'm gonna show you the different ways to grind this up. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is rinse these off. After you're done peeling them, rinse them off. Get all those little pieces of peel that may be on there off of here. So they're rinsed off. Place these here. You can't see it yet, but I'm placing them here on my cutting mat. I'm going to fill this bowl up with some water. So when I'm done chopping these up, as I chop them up, I can add them to the water. Okay, so I was telling you, let me show you guys. You could use a grater, the small holes on the grater, to grind this all up. But like I said, I have ulnar nerve syndrome and carpal tunnel syndrome, so that is pretty much a strain on my arms and my hands. And if you have the same issue, or if you just value your fingers, you don't want to grate them up, you could use a food processor or a high-speed blender. Some people that are fortunate enough, they have the pasteles machines that you just run your yuccas or your bananas and everything through it, and it comes out already all grounded up, nice, quick, and easy. But in this case, we're gonna use my Ninja blender. So I'm gonna show you how to cut these up and how to get them grounded up. Okay, so what we're gonna do here is be careful, because sometimes these things are not easy to cut in half. What we're gonna do is we're gonna cut off this end and just probably the little tip here. Just move this one out the way. Be careful with your fingers, guys. when you're doing this. Okay, and I actually had put up a video a couple of days ago on how to make the yucca, but I had some technical difficulties, so I had to take it down, and so I wanted to do it again so I could share this recipe with you guys. And as you can hear, I'm struggling. So don't be afraid to pull away to try to crack it off sometimes. Okay. Okay. Yeah. You see it? It's really, sometimes it's easy. It isn't always this hard. But you have to be careful doing it too, because we don't want to chop our fingers. And me, I'm always an accident waiting to happen. So I have to be super careful. So here, we'll just gonna snip off this little end here. Let's get rid of this stuff here. So we're gonna cut this in half. Careful, like I said, be careful. So we cut that in half. And now we're gonna cut this one. We're gonna turn this one upright and slice it down the middle. Now, if I had one of those machines that you could just put your bananas and your root vegetables through, that automatically just makes the masa for you, I wouldn't be doing this. But being that I'm putting it, even though it's a high-speed blender, it's a Ninja blender, I still like to take out these little roots that grow in the middle, like vines, because they're not pleasant to chew on. When you hit some of them, you're eating a pasteles, and all of a sudden you bite into this, it's not pleasant at all. So to avoid that, I just take a couple of minutes to make sure I pull them out. Okay, and that's pulled out. And being at this, I'm gonna cut this one too, because if I try this way, I'll probably end up hurting myself. So just cut that one in half, cut that one up. Same thing with this one. I'm going to take out these roots here. Be careful with the knife, because I've stuck myself doing this. The knife slipped and I stuck myself. And now I guess it's safe to cut this one. Slice it down the middle. Okay. How fibrous it is. This is not, I guess, it's not pleasant at all to end up chewing on when you're in the middle of enjoying your pasteles. So it's worth taking the extra time out just to make sure it's all out. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is, let me so that way it grinds up nice in the blender. And normally you should these would only be blended up once and then squeezed. But being that I'm using a blender, I grind them up twice. I grind them up the first time and then I squeeze out all the water. And I'm going to put these, speaking of water, I'm going to put this into our bowl of water here. So after you squeeze it out, after it's all ground up and you squeeze out the water, all the starch that's in it, you should just be able to put it, in your bowl and season it up and then start wrapping up your pasteles. But being that what I've learned from my blender, I was wondering why. Maybe because it's not as new as it used to be. But I noticed as time went on, my yuccas weren't coming out as light as they should have. Like the masa was heavy. It wasn't light like yucca pasteles usually are. So what I started doing is now I run it through. I blend it up twice. The first time it goes through, I squeeze out all the water. Then I put it back in the blender and I add the milk to it, the plant-based milk. I add that to it and I blend it up while it's in the milk, in the blender. So that way it gets that nice blended texture and it comes out a lot lighter. The color, the texture, much more pleasant than it would have if I only ran it through the blender once. I'm babbling, guys. I hope this makes sense to you. So as you can see, I'm cutting these up into little cubes just to make it easier on the blender and to make sure everything gets blended well. And while you're cutting these up, if you come across any of the little skinny stems that I was showing you how to take out, just pull them out. Okay. And watch them fingers, because some parts of the same yucca, some parts could be much softer than other parts. Other parts can be really hard. So just be careful that you don't slip and cut your fingers. Okay. I was bummed out when I uploaded the first video that I did of this to YouTube, and it just wasn't right. The video itself just wasn't right. The frame was all off, so I had to do it over. I also had to get myself a new tripod, because that had a lot to do with the issue also. So far this one I'm using seems to be working out pretty okay. As you can see, you see this here? That is a little hard to get out, so I'm just gonna cut like right there and see what's going on in there. Let's see. You know, like my grandma used to always tell me, waste not, want not. Okay, so I'll get rid of that because it's probably a hard little piece of root in there. And sure, the blender might get it, but why risk it? I am not going to risk that. Oh. And I did mention to you guys at the beginning of this video that I will be leaving the links to the filling recipe, and also to the link to how to make the sofrito that you're going to need it for the filling as well. Okay, so that one's all chopped up. And I'll chop up the next and be right back. Okay, so got the blender out. And we have all our yucca cut up. So you gotta be patient with this. So it's gonna be a little at a time, just to make sure it gets blended up. Even though it's gonna go in a second time. Let's just get it started off slowly. Okay. Start by mixing a little bit. Handful at a time. A handful at a time. Pulse it again a little. Okay. Push down the sides. Now I'm just gonna put it on low and start adding in some yucca from the top. In the top, I'm gonna add it to the top of the blender because you see it has this little flap here. So I'm just gonna add it in as the blender blends. Just be careful. Try to cover the little chute here that the yucca is gonna go into, because that stuff, it flies all over the place sometimes, and it's just a headache to clean it up. So let's start. I'm putting my wrist over the hole, and I'm going to start the blender. Matter of fact, I'm going to show you how I'm doing this. Okay, so you guys can see how I'm doing this. Here I have the yucca. So I'm just going to turn it this way so you can see what I'm doing here. So I'm going to start the blender, and I'm going to put it on low. See how I'm cupping, like funneling my hands together, so that as I put these in, this doesn't fly all over the place, because this here is just a mess to clean up. So let's start again. Put it on, turn it on, put it on low. Push it down. And then now that it's getting a little, it's filling up more, we could turn the speed up on it. I'll turn it up to medium. So I'm going to finish this up and then be back with you guys to show you how to squeeze this out. So get your towels ready, your clean towels. Okay, so it's blended up. And what we're going to do now is we're going to empty it into a bowl. You see, this is the stuff I'm talking about. I know I'm kind of like hung up on this because it just leaves you a mess trying to clean it up. So just try to keep it in the blender, people. Okay. Okay. Let's get this into this bowl here. So now what we're going to do is, what I do is I take a strainer and I put it in a bowl, because that way while I'm squeezing out the water out of the yucca, if any of the yucca falls, it won't fall directly into the water because it's kind of hard to fish it out of there. So that way, in case that happens and it'll fall, the water will be in the bottom of the bowl, and the yucca that fell out will be in the strainer, and I could just scoop it back up and continue squeezing the water. So now I'm going to take a clean towel and I'm going to put it right over the strainer. And what we're going to do is we're going to squeeze this water out a little at a time, because if you add too much to the towel, you're really not going to be able to squeeze a lot of the water out. So this is what I do. Oh, and I need another bowl to put it in. Okay. So make sure you have your other bowl to put your wrung out masa in, yucca. Okay, so we got it in the towel. Just gonna close up the ends. Pull this side up, pull the other side up, and just start squeezing. And this is why I can't do this all the time. Do this once in a while. I mean, to do it in large batches, it really takes a toll on anyone who has any kind of nerve issues, you know, in their hands, their arms, especially I got arthritis too in my fingers. So I try to do a small batch at a time as opposed to doing really big batches like I used to. So that seems to help somewhat. Okay, so it's all wrung out. Okay, I'm gonna put it here in this bowl so you guys can see. It's gonna feel like kind of chalky, but that's okay. It's supposed to be like that. And I'll wring out, squeeze out a little more. Remember, a small spoon at a time. It doesn't, believe me, it's gonna take less time doing it this way than if you were to try to do a whole lot of it at one time. And the end result, if you did, it just won't be the same as if you just take your time and squeeze it out a little bit, you know, spoonfuls. I wish somebody invented a machine that does this, that squeezes all this water out. That would be awesome. I'd make this all the time if they had a machine like that. There it is. I'm gonna squeeze out the rest of this stuff, and then we'll be back to run it through the blender again. If I had one of those yucca machines, one of those pasteles machines that ran everything through and ground it up, and a machine that just squeezed everything out for me, we wouldn't have to do this a second time. Well, I wouldn't have to do it a second time. Some of you guys may not have to. Some of you guys may have, you know, better blenders than me, or maybe actually have, you know, the machines that grind up the pasteles. The yucca or the bananas and stuff like that. So I'll be back. Okay, so I finished squeezing all the water out, the starch out of the yucca. This is all the water that was left behind after I poured it out. You can see it in the sink. It's a lot of water. Now let me show you what was left on the bottom, what's left on the bottom of the bowl once you're done squeezing it out. You see all that? I'm wondering if this is how they make the tapioca flour, tapioca starch. Because not so long ago, I just learned that yucca is actually tapioca, what they use to make tapioca with, and tapioca starch. So this is what you want to get. It's what you're getting out, all that watery starch, and then this resin comes out with it. So that's why we gotta squeeze all the water out of there. So I just wanted to show you this to you guys, and I shall return in a minute. Okay, so now that I'm done squeezing all of this starch out, watery starch out of the yucca, I'm gonna put it back into my blender. Oops, a little. It really does feel kind of chalky. I'm going to take it off the base, so it's going to make my life easier. Oops, oh, making a mess. Okay, so now I'm going to use oat milk. Normally we would use evaporated milk, but I cannot find the unsweetened vegan evaporated milk. I mean, I could make my own evaporated milk, and I could put this in a pot and just let it simmer till it's, halfway down. I could just, I've already used this oat milk with, without, diluting it. So rather evaporating it. I also used, what else did I use? I also used almond milk. Almond milk works good too. So right now I have oat milk, and that's what we're going to be using. But like I said, if you guys know where I can find vegan, the coconut evaporated, unsweetened, let me know. Let me know in this video. Okay, so let's get started. Be careful how much milk you pour in, because if you get this too thin, you're not going to have pasteles. You're going to have a paper filled with mush. So let's take it easy. The last video that I uploaded that I had to take down, I made that mistake. Because I'm so used to making bigger batches, that I just went heavy-handed on the milk, and it was a mess. So I actually used that video, was going to use that video as the do's and do nots making yucca pasteles. But like I said, the frame was all off, so I just deleted it. I'm going to do this new one here for you guys. So I'm going to be careful pouring it in. Okay, let's start on low. Normally, if I was able to get a nice texture without having to do this twice, this yucca would be in a bowl right now, and I would just be pouring the milk in and mixing it and seeing exactly how the texture is forming. So we are doing it this way. We just have to be, you know, careful. Push that down there. Scrape the sides, get it in there. Make sure we want to get it to that right texture. And like a mashed potato texture, I guess. A consistency. Yeah, put it on medium now. High. Remember, I'm just trying to get this also nice and smooth. I don't want it to come out of the water looking thick. Like, it's supposed to have like a light color to it, and more of see, yucca is basically gummy anyways, but you don't want it to the point that it's, I don't know, stiff. You want it like thinner. Like there's a little stretch to it when you pull it with the fork, when you go to eat it with the fork. I gotta be honest with you guys, my favorite pasteles of all is regular pasteles. That's my traditional pasteles. That's it for me. Yucca, I make the yucca because a lot of people enjoy it. I require the taste for it, but my favorite is still traditional pasteles with the bananas and the plantains and the tortilla, and when it boils and you smell it, it's just Christmas time. I'm gonna let this blend a little more, and when I see that it's mixed well, see, I stopped adding milk to it. I'm not adding any more oat milk to it. Now I just want the mixture. I want the masa to blend more. That's all, because I want to make sure everything in there is the same consistency. So we're done. Finally, blending up the yucca, the masa. Okay, just like I said, you just have to be patient and be careful with how much milk you're adding. I'm going to show you the texture right now. Okay. You see that? Also, I have water boiling. It's always good to do test pasteles before you actually go ahead and wrap all of them, because sometimes it may need a little tweak here, a little tweak there with the seasonings or whatever, you know, or the texture. Maybe you need to add a little more milk, you know. So just do a test one before you go ahead and wrap all of them. So I have the water boiling, so that way when I'm ready to put my test pasteles in, it'll be boiling already, because the water should be boiling before you put any pasteles in to cook. And also make sure the water is salted like the sea. Like when you boil water for pasta, you salt it like the sea. Do that for your pasteles water also. So here it is. Here's the mixture. It's kind of like a soft mashed potato. That's what the texture should be. Okay, so now we're gonna season our yucca masa. Okay, we're gonna season it first with a little bit of salt. I ran out of my Morton's natural sea salt in the supermarket, believe it or not, didn't have it. So I ended up having to get this sea salt, but it was just coarse, so I ended up having to put the salt in my grinder and just grind up the coarse salt into fine crystals. So be careful with the salt. Just do a little bit of salt. We don't want it too salty because remember the water is salty. Now this here, this is achote. You can't find it in the powder form in the supermarkets or online. All I could find with the seeds, so I had to put this in my grinder also and just grind it down to the fine powder. Just because normally you would put a package of sazon, but being that I don't use sazon anymore, I make my own. The adobo sazon, the Goya sazon or any other pre-made stuff from the supermarket. I don't use that stuff anymore. I just make my own now. And you will have the link for those also in the description box after this video. So I just ground this down myself. So I'll just put a little bit, because if you put a lot, it's going to be crazy orange when it comes out the paper. So I'm just going to put a tiny bit, because you know why? We're going to be using achote oil anyways for the paper. And that achote oil leaves a beautiful color. This you use the seeds for. And it's also going to be in the link also on how to make this. So I think there's going to be like 3 links. One is how to wrap your pasteles. The other one is how to make the sofrito. And then this rest of this stuff for like the seasonings and the oil is going to be in another video on how to make pasteles. So I'll leave that link for you guys. Okay, so we added that in. Just like I just want a little hue color here. Like not even, it won't even probably leave a color, but it'll leave a nice earthy taste also. Like a nutty taste. Earthy. Like a nutty taste. And mix that up. Some people, they just use salt, pepper, and the sazon. Me, I used a little bit of the achote powder. I'm gonna add a little pepper. I already added the salt. I'm gonna add a little garlic just to give it some flavor, you know? A little extra flavor. Okay, we'll use a little garlic powder, onion powder also. We'll mix this up. And you see how the texture is, it's like a mashed potato. Okay, so let's taste this. Believe it or not, I could use a tiny bit more salt. You guys use as much or as little salt as you want. I mean, if you don't even want salt, don't add the salt, because let's face it, salt really isn't good for anybody, especially a blood pressure. Okay. That's better. It's not very salty at all, but you got a nice little, mellow flavor from the masa. Okay, so we're gonna get ready to wrap this now. Okay, so we have we're gonna wrap 2 of them. It's gonna be, normally pasteles I only wrap 1, but for the video I'm gonna wrap 2 of them. The scissors and our string. Yucca. Achote oil. They also call it anate. Here I have my I just put them in the same bowl together just to, you know. Here I have rinsed off garbanzo beans, chickpeas, and on the side here I have my green olives. Here is the filling. It's so junk, and I'm going to show you too small a piece to show. It's like just like meat. It's just like meat, and it's delicious. I have how to make that too in one of the links that I'm gonna share with you guys at the end of this video. So what we're gonna do is first we're gonna add a little bit of the oil, not too much, because after you wrap them up, the oil will start to seep through the cracks of the paper, and you'll have oil everywhere. So that's good. And this oil is gonna give the masa, the yucca, a really pretty color. Okay, we put in the powder. Achote, this is way too orange. So here's the spoonful that I'm putting down. I mean, you can make these as big or as small as you like. I mean, not too big, because, you know, you'll have stuff, you'll have it coming out the paper. When you try to wrap it, it'll be a mess. So that's how you apply that to the paper. Next, we're gonna lay down our vegan pork stew. I also do this, I also make the stew also, I make it with jackfruit, which is also going to be in the link too, I believe. Now we're going to add our, and don't be afraid to get some of that sauce from the stew inside in this on this masa, on the yucca, because that leaves a very nice flavor too. So we add a few garbanzo beans. Let's add a few olives. Okay. Now we're gonna wrap it up. And like I said, excuse me, I have a video dedicated just to wrapping. And that's gonna be in the description box. Okay. Turn it over. Pack it in. Wrap it like you're wrapping a gift. Okay. Put this to the side and start on your next one. The oil. I mean, when I first started making these, I would forget sometimes to put the oil on. But thank goodness I would realize when it was just the masa on here, so I was able to just put the masa back in the bowl and then put the oil on and then do the masa again. Okay. Okay. Stew. You guys, I have like I said, I have video how to make the regular pasteles too. So you know, that you can also go refer to that video as well. As a matter of fact, I think that is the link that I'm sharing with you guys on how to make the seasonings and the achote oil and stuff. Oh, we're gonna flip this over. Now, this paper, you can find it in the supermarkets and the produce section. They usually have it in the produce sections along with the string as well. Okay, so that one's done. Now we have this one. We'll put the two of them on top of each other. And we're going to stretch our arms out with the string as far as our arms can go. And then cut that string. Now we're going to put this on top of the string. See the loop? See the ends? Right through there. The ends go right through that loop. Pull it up. Pull it apart. Away from the strings away from each other. Turn it around. Tie it. Flip it over. And tie into a knot. Cut them strings, and this is it. We wrapped our pasteles. Now it goes into the water for an hour, sometimes an hour and 5 minutes, just to be on the safe side. Okay, our water's at a nice rolling boil, and we're going to carefully put our pasteles in here, okay? And since I don't have a lid to this pot, I'm just going to cover it with a dish. And that's going to boil for an hour. If you want to leave it for 5 extra minutes, that's fine too. Just check it once in a while, because sometimes the water starts to evaporate. If that happens, just add more water to it. And we'll be back in an hour, and we're going to see what our pasteles came out like. It's been an hour and 5 minutes. I let it go the extra 5. And I'm going to take them out now. See what's going on with these. Be careful taking them out, they're really hot. Okay guys, the moment of truth. Let's see how these came out. Sometimes it's better to let them sit for a couple of minutes before you actually open up the papers. Gives them a little extra time just to solidify a little bit. So we're gonna see what happens here. If the first one is too soft, we'll let the second one sit. Well, let's see. Be careful because the paper is hot. There's a lot of hot steam coming out of this. This, we should let it sit a little longer. Let's see. Yes. Can you see it, guys? There it is. Came out pretty good, guys. It was soft and smooth consistency. Very good. I could have put a little more of the achote, the powder, into the mixture. But aside from that, it's really good. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Feel free to comment. Leave me any questions. And if you guys know where I could get that unsweetened vegan evaporated milk, please leave that in my comments or in the comments also. I appreciate you guys. I love you. Thank you for your support. And I'll see you soon.